On a bright Saturday morning, I was busy at work in our little cafe, trying to keep up with the usual morning rush. Suddenly, something interesting happened that made my day a lot more exciting. Two customers walked in, a husband and wife, and they seemed cheerful as they entered. The man approached me with a big smile, and I could tell he was speaking English, but the words just flew over my head like birds in the sky. I felt a bit nervous because I had no idea what he wanted. I thought maybe he was looking for something on the menu that we didn't have, like a fancy pastry or a special drink. So, not wanting to keep him waiting or look silly, I quickly waved my boss over. She came to help, and I could see the relief wash over me as she started chatting with him. They seemed to understand each other well, and soon enough, she took his order for 2 coffees and 2 of our regular sandwiches. I stood there, watching and learning, hoping that one day I would understand English as easily as they did. The couple smiled at me as they waited, and I could feel a mix of excitement and hope. This little moment felt like a small step on my big journey to learn English, and I couldn't wait to see what else would happen that day. I was really surprised when the couple finally left the cafe. They waved goodbye, and I felt a mix of relief and a bit of sadness at the same time. After they walked out, I took a deep breath and went straight to my boss, wanting to explain how I felt about the whole situation. "I'm so sorry I didn't understand the man," I told her, my voice a little shaky. I could feel my cheeks turning warm. She smiled kindly and said, "Oh, don't worry. That can happen sometimes." I was curious, so I asked her what she meant by that. She explained that it's easy to get confused when someone speaks with an accent that we aren't used to. I nodded, trying to soak in her words, but I still felt a little embarrassed. Then, with a twinkle in her eye, she added, "You know, they were from Scotland." My eyes widened at that. Scotland? I had heard about it in movies and books, but I didn't know much at all. I asked her more questions, eager to learn about this place I had only imagined. She shared fun facts about Scotland, the beautiful landscapes, the rolling hills, and the famous lochs. "And the food is delicious too," she said, smiling. "They have haggis, shortbread, and even amazing seafood." The more she talked, the more fascinated I became. I realized how much there was to discover not just in the English language, but also in the world around me. I thought about how every conversation felt like a little adventure, even if I stumbled over words sometimes. Each encounter brought new challenges, and I was excited for all the learning ahead. I couldn't wait for the next customer to walk in, hoping they would have a story to share that would help me grow on this journey. I left her office feeling inspired, thinking about Scotland and how far I still had to go. The next day, I walked into school feeling a mix of excitement and worry. I couldn't wait to tell my teacher about the funny encounter at the cafe. As I sat in class, I raised my hand and shared my story. "I felt really stupid," I said, a bit embarrassed. "I didn't understand our customer, and it made me doubt myself." My heart raced as I spoke. I told her how unsure I felt about my English skills, especially since I was working in a cafe where I needed to communicate well. My boss was understanding, but I still worried about making mistakes. I wanted to do a good job, and I didn't want to let anyone down. After I finished my story, my teacher listened carefully. She nodded and smiled. It's completely normal to feel this way, she said gently. Everyone struggles with language, especially when they hear different accents. I felt a little better just hearing that. I started to ask her what I could do in situations like that, where I didn't understand what someone was saying. How can I improve? I wondered aloud. She encouraged me to practice listening and speaking more. Try listening to different English speakers, she suggested. Watch movies or listen to podcasts. Her ideas sparked a little fire inside me. I thought about all the fun ways I could learn. Maybe I can find some Scottish shows, I said with a smile, remembering the couple from the day before. She laughed and agreed that would be a great idea. With her encouragement, I felt ready to take on the challenge. I wanted to be more confident and capable in my job, and I was determined to improve my English. The day went on, filled with new lessons, and I left class feeling motivated. I was eager to practice and learn, hoping that my next customer would be a little easier to understand. My teacher listened carefully as I explained my struggles. Then she smiled and said, "I understand where you're coming from. You are used to the English spoken in London, but the Scottish accent is quite different." Her words made sense, and I felt a little lighter. "Your ears aren't used to listening to the Scottish accent yet," she continued, looking at me kindly. "But that's okay. All you have to do is listen more to Scottish English." I was surprised at how simple that sounded. "You need to train your ears to this accent as well," she added. I thought about what she said. Training my ears. That sounded like a fun challenge. I started to imagine all the ways I could learn. Maybe I could find some Scottish music, I suggested, feeling more excited. Or I could watch shows with Scottish characters. My teacher nodded, her eyes shining with encouragement. Exactly. There are many resources out there. The more you listen, the easier it will become. I began to picture myself watching movies set in Scotland, laughing at the funny characters and trying to catch their words. "Don't worry if you don't understand everything at first," she said. "It takes time. Just keep practicing." Her confidence in me made me feel stronger. I realized that I wasn't alone in this journey. Everyone had to start somewhere, and even my teacher had faced challenges when learning languages. "You're doing great," she added with a smile. "Each little step counts." I left her classroom feeling inspired and ready to dive into this new adventure. I couldn't wait to find some Scottish shows to watch and start training my ears. The thought of connecting with new accents excited me, and I felt hopeful about what was to come. When I first landed in England, my heart raced with excitement, but I was also filled with a bit of nervousness. I had always thought I was pretty good at English back home. I could chat with friends and understand most of what I read, but the moment I stepped into that bustling airport, I was hit with a wave of thick accents that made my head spin. People spoke so quickly, and the words seemed to dance around me, making it hard to catch even a single one. I remember standing in line for my bags, trying to follow a conversation between two strangers. They were laughing and joking, and I could only manage to smile, pretending I understood everything. Inside, though, I felt completely lost. It was a strange feeling, realizing that the English I knew didn't quite match what I was hearing. I thought, what's happening? This is supposed to be English. I had imagined myself chatting with locals, confidently asking for directions or ordering food. But instead, I felt like a fish out of water. It dawned on me that learning a language isn't just about memorizing words. It's also about how people say them and the rhythm of their speech. I had heard from others that it could take around 2 weeks to get used to the different accents, but those words didn't ease my anxiety. Every day, I stepped out of my small room, determined to dive into this new world and absorb as much as I could. I would sit in cafes, eavesdropping on conversations, trying to catch bits and pieces. Little did I know, the real journey was just beginning, and I was about to discover so much more than just a new language. After a few days in England, I found myself sitting in a cozy cafe, sipping tea and watching people chat around me. I was still struggling to catch what they were saying. One afternoon, I turned to a friendly woman at the next table, hoping she could help. "You shouldn't think there's something wrong with you if you don't understand a new accent," she said with a reassuring smile. Her words comforted me. I realized it was normal to feel this way, especially in a new country. With practice, she explained, I could train my ears to pick up different sounds and accents. It was a process, she said, like learning to ride a bike. At first it feels awkward, but soon you find your balance. Curious, I asked, "So, what can I do to understand the Scottish accent? I don't live in Scotland." She laughed a little and said it was a great question. "You can start by listening. Watch movies or shows from Scotland. Try to mimic what you hear." I liked that idea. It felt like a fun challenge. "And don't be shy about asking people to repeat themselves," she added. "Most folks are happy to help." Her advice gave me hope. It was clear I needed to immerse myself in this new world. I started to think about all the ways I could learn and connect with people. Little did I know this journey was going to change me in ways I never expected. A few days later, we had a class in a bright room with large windows. Our teacher, a kind woman with a warm smile, stood at the front, excited to share tips on understanding different accents. She said, "You can watch films with Scottish English or enjoy situation comedies from Scotland, and soon you will understand." I sat up a little straighter, feeling a spark of hope. It was such a simple idea, but it made sense. I loved watching movies back home, and now I could do that here too, just with a Scottish twist. After class, I approached her, feeling grateful. "Thank you," I told her, feeling a bit shy. She smiled back and said, "You'll see, it's fun. Just pick something you like." I felt my excitement growing. Maybe I could start with a comedy. I remembered seeing some funny clips online. They always made me laugh, even if I didn't catch every word. As I left the classroom, I started thinking about all the possibilities. I could invite some friends over to watch too. We could laugh together while learning. I imagined us sitting on the couch, snacks all around, trying to figure out the funny bits. It felt like a perfect plan. This journey was starting to feel more like an adventure. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of my quest to understand not just the language, but the culture too. After school, I headed back to my job at the cafe. I loved working there, even though I was still getting used to the busy atmosphere. Around 4 o'clock, just as the sun began to set, 2 interesting customers walked in. They seemed different from the usual crowd. I could tell right away they weren't from Scotland. Their accents were a mix of languages, and they spoke with excitement. I felt a little nervous but also curious. As they sat down at a table near the window, I approached them with a smile. "Hello, what can I get for you?" I asked, trying to sound confident. They smiled back and asked about the menu. One of them, a tall man with curly hair, said, "What's good here?" I started to explain our special cakes and coffees, feeling proud to share my favorite things. While I talked, I noticed they were trying to understand me. Their faces showed a mix of confusion and interest, just like I had felt when I first arrived. It was kind of comforting. I realized we were both in the same boat, trying to understand each other. I suggested they try our chocolate cake. "It's really popular," I said enthusiastically. They laughed and nodded, which made me feel more at ease. As I took their order, I couldn't help but wonder where they were from. I wanted to know their stories. Maybe they were also learning English, just like me. It felt like a small connection, even if we didn't know each other well. After I served them, I stopped by their table a few times, chatting and practicing my English. Each moment made me feel more confident, and I started to enjoy the flow of conversation. Little did I know, this encounter would lead to a friendship that would change my experience in England. The two ladies were looking at the menu, trying to figure out what to order. It was clear they wanted some coffee, but their English was very basic. I watched as my boss approached them with a friendly smile. She could tell they were having a tough time. Instead of speaking to them in her usual way, she did something really interesting. She switched to very simple sentences, using only 3 or 4 words at a time. "What do you want?" she asked. It was amazing to see how quickly the ladies understood her. They looked relieved and began to point at the menu. "2 coffees," one lady said slowly, her accent thick but clear. "And 2 sandwiches," the other added, smiling as she nodded. My boss kept her tone cheerful, making it easier for them. "And 2 cakes?" she asked, and they both nodded eagerly. It was like a little dance, watching them communicate with just a few words and gestures. I felt a warm glow inside. The ladies looked so happy as my boss prepared their order. I could see their eyes light up when they received their drinks and food. My boss seemed pleased too. She always believed in making everyone feel welcome no matter where they came from. It felt good to be part of that atmosphere. I thought about how important it is to connect with people, even when words are hard to find. That moment taught me something valuable. It was all about kindness and understanding. Little did I know, this would inspire me to help others in the same way, as I continued my journey to learn English in this beautiful country. When the two ladies finally left, I felt a sense of happiness wash over me. They had smiles on their faces, and it made my heart warm. I turned to my boss, who was wiping down the counter, and said, "It was really nice how you changed your English so they could understand." She paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. "Thank you," she replied with a smile. "Sometimes I have to speak in very simple English." I nodded, curious to hear more. She continued, "It doesn't matter if the customers speak English well or not. They are our customers, and we have to do everything possible to make them feel comfortable." I loved how she said that. It showed how much she cared about everyone who walked through our doors. If they see that they can speak English here, they will feel at home. They might come to our cafe every day. Her words stuck with me. I realized that creating a welcoming space was just as important as serving good coffee. I began to think about my own experience learning English. I often felt nervous trying to speak, worried I would mess up. But watching my boss gave me a new perspective. If she could make people feel at ease with just a few simple words, maybe I could do the same. Maybe I didn't need to worry so much about making mistakes. Maybe it was okay to start small. As I watched the cafe fill up with more customers, I felt inspired. I wanted to practice my English and help others feel comfortable too. This little cafe was not just a place to get coffee, it was a community, and I was excited to be a part of it. As I wiped down a table in the cafe, I couldn't help but admire my boss. I thought to myself, she is a really good businesswoman. Every day she works so hard to make our customers happy. I watched her interact with each person who walked in. She greeted them with a big smile, making everyone feel welcome. It was clear that she cared about what they wanted. If someone looked confused, she would explain the menu patiently. If they seemed in a hurry, she would quickly take their order with a friendly nod. I realized how important it was for her to build good relationships with our customers. It's true that we have a lot of customers every day. The cafe is busy from morning till evening, filled with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of cups. There are always people enjoying their coffee or sharing stories with friends. I loved being part of this lively atmosphere. I felt proud to work here, knowing that our boss played a big role in making it special. Sometimes I would see familiar faces coming back again and again. They would wave to my boss and chat with her like old friends. It made me think about how important it is to connect with others. I wanted to learn from her and do the same. I wanted to make people feel valued, just like she did. It inspired me to practice my English even more. I hope that one day, I could also greet customers in a way that made them smile. This cafe was not just a place to get food and drink. It was a place where friendships grew, and I wanted to be a part of that community.